Hello and welcome to the southern suburbs of Sao Paulo for highlights from the 10th and final round of the 2022 Formula SimRacing World Championship, the Brazilian Grand Prix. I'm Edward Hunter, and here's everything you need to know going into the title decider. Alex Siebel's lead in the World Championship over Colin Spork has grown to 6 points, after Spork was penalised down to 10 after this incident at the United States Grand Prix. Debutant Matthew Williams also lost his third place to Siebel in the stewards' room after this final corner incident. Veteran Dutch driver Stefan Ruolt fills in the second seat at Unicorns of Love with the goal of helping his teammate Spork secure the Drivers' Championship. New pro champion Cosmo Pasciuto aimed to impress on the Americans' World Championship debut. Maciej Milnek fills in for Lauren Kiersmakers at Edge eSports. Danny Van Der Neet subs in at NetRX as David Toff and Tom Stevens make their bow in the World Championship for Arnage and Super Venturi. Finally, TR Motorsports make a one-off return with FSR President Cameron Roger and Polish driver Tomasz Vash on driving duties. Williams took his and Royal Blue's first pole position in the World Championship, but it was Spork who made the better getaway alongside him to snatch the lead. Pandemonium raged behind them as Jan Vosnica went off track and Zolt Zux made contact with Ruolt, sending him straight into the barriers and out of the race. Worse was to follow as Milnek, Damien Skovron and Dennis Jordan all came together at Curva do Sol. Siebel, however, made his way through to climb from 12th to 8th. Matthew Williams used the DRS to overcome Spork into the Center S on lap 3, retaking the lead. After his best ever qualifying, Denahan had jumped the start, forcing him to take a drive-through penalty whilst running 4th. Spork, meanwhile, went around the outside of Williams at turn 1, only to find the Royal Blue driver using the DRS to shoot back up the inside at turn 4. With the championship at stake, Spork was determined to take maximum points, and he used DRS to pull clear of Williams, as Sander Callas did the same to pass Jan Grankvist for third. Callas was the first to pit on lap 15, followed by Roivers, Hoyer, Ruolt and Pasciuto. Spork and Williams immediately responded, and the British driver narrowly avoided hitting the back of the Unicorns of Love car. Janos Braksok and Van Der Neet followed them in, as Spork maintained the net lead on exit. Williams had to briefly fend off Callas, who had used the undercut to close in, as Stevens ran off track to give up position. Spork was then on the move, going around the outside of Tom Oldenmenger at Bico de Pato. Williams wasted no time and followed him through into Junção. Callas then got a great run on Williams with the DRS, but went far too deep into turn 1, touching the grass and being only narrowly avoided by Braksok as he rotated a full 360 degrees. This in turn left him vulnerable to Grankvist, who had just pit and breezed by. Siebel made his first stop for mediums on lap 20, coming out behind a train of cars led by Adam Rainey. Grankvist, meanwhile, made light work of Roivers for 4th as Ruolt tried to go around the outside of Hoyer at turn 1, allowing Vosnica, Toff and Siebel to pass the Burst eSports driver. Siebel continued his charge, dispensing with Toff's Arnage machine before following Ruolt past Vosnica. Ruolt then caught the netrex of Rainey and used the DRS to pass on lap 25. The following lap, it was Siebel's turn, with the Red Bull driver opting for the outside line. Rainey refused to yield without a fight, and the British driver made minor contact as Siebel passed him on the outside through the Center S. Next up was Ruolt, as the Dutchman defended the inside into turn 1. There was nothing he could do on the rundown Reto Aposta, however, as Siebel swept right on the outside with DRS to continue his surge. Spork suddenly saw the lead slip away as Williams used the DRS to pass him, and it looked like Braksok would attack as well until the Hungarian had a huge oversteer moment into Ferradura, which he did well to collect. Hoyer and Vosnica dived into the pits on lap 30, as Spork returned the favour on Williams in their duel for victory. Braksok made his second stop on lap 31, followed by Ruolt, Rainey and Toff. Callas was powerless to stop Siebel from climbing up to 5th, as Braksok went around the outside of Denahan, who'd recovered back to the top 10. Behind him, Vash went up the inside of Oldenmenger at Ferradura. Siebel comfortably cleared Noah Roivers around the outside for 4th, as Williams mounted another attack on Spork at the Center S on lap 35, putting the championship on a knife edge with Siebel threatening to finish on the podium. Williams made his second stop on lap 36 to undercut Spork, coming out just behind Braksok, who the Brit made short work of before moving on to Panzar. Braxok then went around the outside of Panzer with the DRS, squeezing the Swede at the apex and spinning him at turn 1 as Spork pit from the lead, emerging just behind them. Voznica forced his way past Hoyer in the battle for 10th, as Spork braked late into turn 1 to overcome the burst complexity of Panzer. Hoyer meanwhile was having to get very defensive and would now take revenge on Voznica, forcing the pole wide, allowing Denahan through on soft tyres. The Irishman was having a strong recovery drive and looked to have the move completed on Hoyer at the inside into turn 1, but he braked much too deep, allowing the German to slip back through. Williams had caught Siebel for the lead on lap 42, with the German running long he had little to defend against him with. Denahan made a bold pass on Hoyer around the outside of the Senna S, but found the burst car using DRS to get back alongside. The Edge eSports driver turned in on Hoyer from the outside, making contact and spinning down to 12th. Spork had now caught up to Siebel, and the German stuck to the middle of the road to try and delay his title rival. Spork simply used his fresher tyres to drive all the way around the outside of the Red Bull in a critical move. Siebel tried to respond by using the DRS down the Retro-Aposta, but Spork was simply later on the brakes and held on to second place. Siebel was quickly into the pits for his second and final stop, emerging just ahead of the train led by Hoyer. The German was really struggling on these mediums, and at Juncal he suddenly found himself swamped as Denahan, Voznica and Pescuto went 4 wide with him down the start-finish line. In a minor miracle, they all managed to make it through turn 1 without hitting each other. Denahan looked to have come out on top, but it was Pesciuto's Royal Blue that took the inside line through Curva de Sol, as Hoyer used the DRS to once again repass Voznica, much to his frustration. It would take until lap 50 for the pole to finally overcome the troublesome burst driver. Braxok had pit and come out behind Siebel, who was again on the move, passing Ruolt round the outside. Williams made his third and final pit stop right as Spork was closing upon him, allowing Unicorns of Love to assume the lead. Pesciuto had fallen behind Denahan and made a straightforward pass around the outside of Vash on lap 53 to take 12th. Williams meanwhile made short work of Callas to keep the pressure on Spork as Rainey defended from Hoyer and Voznica into the Senna S. Hoyer got another run on Rainey, but the Netrex driver held his line, and Hoyer was sent off track, allowing Voznica to once again pick up the pieces. Spork made his final pit stop on lap 55, emerging a few seconds behind Williams. Callas and Roivers also pit, elevating Siebel to third. Voznica cleared Rainey exiting Juncal, only for Hoyer to squeeze through the middle of both Netrex cars. Luckily for Hoyer, he picked up DRS, which enabled him to pull away, while the two behind squabbled. Voznica only just held off Rainey, but now Siebel suddenly found himself in a championship winning position, provided Williams could hold on to victory. Callas locked up at Bico de Pato as he dispensed the Panzer for 6th, and with 10 laps to go, Roivers also cleared the burst complexity car to climb up to 7th. With 8 laps to go, Spork used the DRS to attack Williams on the outside of turn 4 to retake the lead of the race and the championship. Williams was fighting for his first win though, and was determined not to make it easy, diving late on the brakes the following lap to get back through. Spork avoided a collision but was not put off, diving for the inside at the start-finish straight. This time Williams had no response, and Spork now only had to hold on to become world champion. Siebel was being caught hand over fist by Braxok and Grankvist on their fresher tyres, and the Arnage braked wide into the Senna S, allowing Grankvist through. Third would no longer be enough for Siebel to win the championship, but he had to hold on to keep his hopes alive, and the German put together an immaculate defence, despite the best efforts of Grankvist, to steal a spot on the podium. Even a poor run through McGlade was not enough for the Finn to take advantage. Up front though, Spork had put in a superb performance to take his 5th victory of the season, and with it the World Championship now belonged to him. In typical fashion, he celebrated by doing some well-earned donuts with the President. Williams got to officially take his first World Championship podium after pushing Spork all the way. Siebel didn't do enough to win the title, but still put in an incredible recovery drive to third, with Grankvist and Braxok right behind him. Then it was Callas, Roivers, Rolt, Pansar and Prescuto rounding out the top 10 on his debut. Denahan recovered to 11th despite his early drive-through, ahead of Vash, Vosnica, Oldenmenga, Hoyer, Jordan, Rainey, Milnek, Skovron and Roger. Toff, Stevens, Vandeney and Zux all failed to meet the checkered flag. So, the closest World Championship in FSR history ends in favour of Colin Spork. In his first full season, he beats Alex Siebel by just 3 points to secure his place in history alongside the likes of Verne Simonchik and Bono House. Losing the points lead in the final race will be a bitter blow for Siebel, but it cannot disguise the fact that it's been his very best season yet. Jordan ended an incident-filled campaign in a distant third, as Vosnica beat Hoyer to 4th in his first full season. Roivers and Braxok were 6th and 7th with 2 podiums each, meaning the Arnage driver overcame Callas for 7th on countback. Pansar was 9th ahead of debutants Skovron, Oldenmenga and Rainey. Keersmakers, Leonov, Grankvist, Zux and Denahan all had their moments this season, but it was Williams who marked himself out as one to watch. Martin and Ivanov rounded out the top 20 with 41 drivers taking part this season, 37 of whom scored points. Oracle Red Bull Racing wrapped up their first team's championship a round early, finally shedding their bridesmaid status from the previous 2 seasons as Evolution Motorsport. Unicorns of Love were runners-up in their debut season, ahead of Neterex P1 Sim and deposed champions Burst Esports. Ground Effect had their best ever season in 5th, just 2 points ahead of Burst Simplexity. Arnage Competition beat Neterex Grand Prix and Edge Esports to 7th in their first campaign, as the field was rounded out by Super Venturi, Royal Blue Racing and TR Motorsports. A big thanks to our sponsors VCO Esports, SimLab, Masita Esports and 3D Rap, and also to our broadcast directors Felix van Delft and Tony Nickpon and Thomas Lenz, to the rest of our commentary team, and finally to all the teams and drivers for our Amateur, Academy, Pro and the World Championship who put on such a great show for us this season. We'll be back for our Autumn Championship in October, but from me, Edward Hunter, and from the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, it's goodbye for now.